what do we need to do to make sure we get the complete coverage of SEC spring meetings?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Thanks, Coop.
Coop here. First down.
Coop wants us to talk about scheduling. Greg Sankey says there's nothing likely planned to be addressed beyond the 2025 season. Well, A, that's surprising. B, that you're not even optimistic that could be done or could really get addressed. That you start off the week with like, we're not going to figure out who's playing who in 2026. Just going to warn you that. That seems odd. For those that don't know, in the NFL, Caleb, you know, there's a rotation of which division plays which division. So you have an idea. This is, to me, bizarre that I feel like there's going to be some huge announcement out of left field before we know it in the coming days, weeks, months, years, and they're going to have a scheduling model. But right now, it doesn't seem like anybody can get along on any of them.
Greg Sankey is operating the SEC the way newspapers operate. Newspapers, as you know, do their layout nightly, day to day. Got to figure out, you go into work in the morning with the newspaper, you have no idea what the front page is going to look like the next day. But with Sankey, with running a league, you're supposed to know 5 or 6 years in advance what it's going to look like. And I don't get this. Greg Sankey's been wanting a 9-game schedule from the start. There are a couple of problems with it. And this is partially his fault. The SEC has little incentive to go to 9 games. A lot of the schools don't have any incentive to go to 9 games because the payout won't be any better. And they want to make sure they can get to a bowl game. So they want those 4 easy non-conference games. And then they want that payout for going to a bowl game. The reason is ESPN has made it pretty clear. They have no interest even renegotiating with the SEC to give them a better deal on their contract right now.
Yep. Here's my theory. I'm not going in that direction, but my theory is this. Greg Sankey wants to see what the power structure of the football coaches are going to be in particular, because Nick Saban's gone. So I think he's going to be like, I want to visit with these guys a couple of times. I wanted to get to know you before we work together. I think that there are a couple of significant changes. Whereas when Nick Saban walked in the room, he had what? 50% of the gravitas, the control of the room, not to go Latin on you, but he had that. And now Kalen DeBoer, he has at best, 1/18th, and he may not want that. I don't think Steve Spurrier went and tried to enact a lot of change. So I don't know who controls the room. I think that's what he's waiting for. I think that's a big factor. Greg Sankey on Jaden Rashada. He's the quarterback that Florida couldn't find. Oops, I've lost your NIL contract. That's my bad. And he had to go to Arizona State and then is now back at Georgia, and he's suing the University of Florida. Now, particularly, he's suing Billy Napier as a person, which is a big deal. Greg Sankey says, I don't like lawsuits. I'm not a fan of those. Well, no kidding. Get ready for at least, I'm going to put the over under at a half dozen more of lawsuits that deal with SEC teams over the next 2 years. So it'll be a while before we pay off this bet, but I'll give you a stake bet over under 6.5 lawsuits from players to SEC schools. I get Texas and Oklahoma, even if it predates it. If you give me those schools, steak dinner. How about that?
Texas and Oklahoma.
I just want those for numbers. I just need.
Yeah, fine. I'll play this game with you. Yes, I don't think most SEC programs are as incompetent as Florida, so I don't think it'll be 6.5.
Good answer.
Now I will say this. I think again, I didn't get Greg Sankey's quote though. I'm not a fan of lawsuits. I'm like, are you saying you're not a fan of the Jaden Rashada lawsuit? What are you saying here, buddy? Are you saying that players should have the power?
That hinted to me that here's what I believe that was. He's heard of others, because I guarantee you there's a dozen, if not 24 players, and you would recognize their name if you're a recruiting fan, that are considering doing the same thing depending on what happens with Jaden Rashada. I will guarantee you that. And I think that he through that quote is putting a little bit of pressure on the individual schools to tidy up, get it taken care of. If you promise this kid the money, get him the money, do what you got to do. Or if he showed up 380 pounds and he's not good enough to play anymore, find him another school, do something. Do you see what I'm saying, Caleb? I think this is a subliminal hint to say, get your stuff in order, because you don't want a bunch of player coaches lawsuits flying around.
Okay. I mean, that I could see that. I think I'm reading everything that a lot of people are in wait and see with the Jaden Rashada lawsuit.
Let me ask you this. Do you think Jaden Rashada is the only prospect that Billy Napier messed up on? You don't think he had the same sales pitch to every single one?
Oh, I think Florida messed up on a lot of them. I do. I think Florida more than any other school, because Dave and I, guys, for those of you who are new to the show or who weren't paying attention to us last summer, when I joined Dave, I realized we were at a totally different, we were totally on totally different wavelengths on Florida, because I had reported that they had the top 20 and a top 10, top 20 NIL collective a month after not having a top 100. And Dave came back and he's like, well, that doesn't make sense, because everybody I've talked to down there says that they have no idea what they're doing. So how do they have a top 10 collective now? We kind of came to the conclusion that Florida rushed together a collective without knowing the money they had to run it. And they had that former baseball guy to spearhead it. You know what I'm talking about. I've already forget his name.
The Shapiro. Yep, I know. I do know here. Yeah, I was kind of like, and this just in, the money is the most important part.
Yeah, you gotta have the money to do the collective. They you know what they tried to do? They tried to hemorrhage money. If you guys know business, there are a lot of businesses that they operate at a loss for years, but they hemorrhage money, and then they promote their value and brand more than their actual net worth. And then the net worth comes because people are intrigued. Crypto. Okay, so yeah, that's what a lot of them do. And that's what Florida tried to do from an NIL perspective.
Okay, now a couple of things I want to get to. Back to 4 Downs, brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. All you have to do is stop by that Athens location. I say, I would like an Off the Hook sports t-shirt or a Celebrate 98 book. And just for stopping in and saying hello, they'll take care of you. Please tell them that Dave Hooker sent you. All right. And boom.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
Yeah, we're jumping to 4th down because these are similar. No, we're going to go back to 3rd down.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. 3rd down.
A national standard for NIL, no movement. Everything seems to be in the air, is what he told Jimmy Hyams. So yes, there sounds like there'd like to be a national standard. I don't see how that can be. It depends what you mean by national standard. I mean, give me a school. Southwest Missouri State, whoever they are not going to be able to raise as much money for their program as other schools. So I don't know what national standard means. And to me,
I think what he thinks is, because of this settlement, I think he thinks that Congress is a little more willing to try to get involved to address something like this now, but that's not going to happen this year. It's an election year. So, and he said that it's not going to happen this year, but it's like,
no, wait. You've got to listen. You're not going to believe this. I interviewed him at 2022. Greg Sankey. I interviewed him at the 2022 SEC Media Days, and I said, I haven't heard anybody ask you for a timeline. And he said, oh, well, these are the midterm elections. And I said, oh, okay, so that's out. And he goes, yeah, and next year they've got a full docket. And then he said, and then you've got the regular elections, which is what we're at now, 2024. And then he said, well, and then you don't know what's on next year's docket. Congress doesn't care to help out. They're
so
not going to. Well, he's got his fingers crossed that they help out, but I don't think they're going to help out. Why are they going to help out?
Yeah, it's
we've got a lot of things going on with the country, and we're not going to turn this into a political show, but there's a lot of things going on for those of you that own a business, or for those of you that are out, in the weeds, so to speak. I mean, I don't think Congress is going to say, oh man, we almost forgot before we recess for the summer. we have got to address college football. Oh, good news. Did you hear they have their video game back? I don't think that's going to happen, Caleb.
No, I don't think. Well, here's the thing, though. This is the problem. Congress, the only time they ever get anything done, it's when it's stuff that nobody cares about. Like when they try to ban TikTok or something like that. And now, there's TikTok, and now they're going to address college football because they'd rather do that than address real problems facing the country. So they actually might get their hands on this. And then what they'll do, they could pass something that they can be like, oh, look at us coming together to solve problems for the country. We have fixed NIL and college football. Are we not the most amazing people you've ever seen? Yes.
I don't know that they're going to talk like that. I tell you what, they talk to you and they don't charge you a dime for it. If you have someone in that age group that's in the 60s or perhaps has just turned an age in which they need to talk about Medicare, or a situation in which they need to talk about Medicare, I've got the easy answer for you, and it's right here. It's Medicare Misty.
19 years this year. Well, I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Okay, and Kyle Beach, I know that I've still got a gamble out there with you, and we will get to that. I said Tennessee will pick up 2 commitments by the end of this week. I'm still sticking with that. I extend my bet with him because I thought they'd have 2 by today, really, and I've already lost that as well. So let's get to 4th down. Boom.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
All right. 4th down is specific kickoff times to be set. And I love this. You have to admit, one of the things that the NFL has over college football is, I know that a game's coming on at 105, 115, 415, 25. I mean, I love the cleanliness of an NFL day. I don't like searching around. I know where they are. And I think you would agree that the way they're going to do it now, where they're not going to have announcements that are 6 days away, will be better for the fans that are attending the game and the television fan that wants to be able to watch what game he wants to watch.
Yeah, this is so ridiculously outdated, and here's where it comes from. This whole not scheduling a time until like a week out comes from the cable versus network era. And Dave, you know this, in the 80s, as cable exploded in the 80s and the 90s, the networks wanted to wait each week to see which game they could get to be the biggest, right? And that messed the schedule up for everything else. Well, that's so outdated now because of the way people consume the product. They're all nationally televised games, and they're all available via streaming services. So it didn't make sense. It's much easier now. It's not like you're missing out on something if you don't just go ahead and set the game times now, particularly with these direct contracts with the leagues. So I just wish, and this is only partially, the full times of the first 3 weeks and then all the noon kickoffs after that. Can't they just schedule every game? Can't they just schedule every game? Like, are they really like, oh, this is a top 5 matchup, we need to move this to 7 o'clock at night versus noon? So what? Just let it be. You already, also with the 12-team playoff happening, you don't really need to make top 5 matchups primetime television anymore.
Well, I'll tell you this too, though, but I think part of the reason they did it is because the SEC was so top heavy. I mean, there wasn't a premier game for the most part that didn't have Georgia or Alabama in that. Let me get you to think about that. I mean, recently it's been a 2-team league.